in Israel with Rabbi Klatzko about a month ago, and on his Akiva trip. And I'll just say that the trip changed my life, but also hearing Rabbi Klatzko changed my life. He gave us various speeches throughout the trip, and it really helped show me what it means to be a Jew in America and in the modern world. And he's a great guy. He was also just a great resource to have as we went through Israel. And I trust that you all will enjoy the speech tonight. So without further ado, Rabbi Benzion Klatzko.
So good evening, everyone. I'm not a great fan of necessarily doing a speech in a synagogue because it feels like services. And when you come and you see services, you give a great big yawn or time for sermon. So we'll try to make it exciting and interesting. WOW is an amazing organization, and if it's your first time here, or one of your first times, you really struck gold. You really, really did. And it's one of the reasons, besides that, you got to meet Rabbi Perlman, and you got to meet Rivka Malka, who's just a superstar in her own right. Give it up for Rivka Malka. But it's a very non-judgmental community. You come and they accept you, whoever you are, wherever you are in your life. And I think you're going to come to appreciate that kind of a safe environment that WOW provides. So it's a little plug for you, although I'm not part of WOW. I just really appreciate what you do here. Before I begin my speech, Rivka Malka asked me to give a little bit of background, sort of what motivates me. So I'm going to give you a short bio, and there is a theme to the bios. I'm going to sort of try to stress that theme. So I was born in Cincinnati. I grew up in Cleveland, Ohio. These are my amazing parents, Dr. Klatzko, Mrs. Klatzko. And I went to school. I went to school in Cleveland, then New York, Israel for a bit, and I married the girl that I met when I was 16. She was 14. It was, sort of love at first sight, but we didn't actually talk until we were going out. But we went out, we got engaged right after she turned 17. I turned 19. We were engaged for almost a year, and we got married on her 18th birthday. So it's one present per year, but a big one. And we just celebrated our 25th wedding anniversary last week. So 25th is, of course, plastic, right? The credit card. And we moved to Israel for a year. We lived in New York. At that time, after about a year or two in New York, I had my own synagogue. And the synagogue was in Borough Park, which is very ultra-Orthodox. I was the young guy from Cleveland. And I was about 21, 22 when I became the rabbi there. And for many years I gave speeches there, and I would run the Shabbat service. After about 7 years, I was looking for something more, and I left that pulpit and I moved to New Jersey to a city called Perth Amboy. And Perth Amboy is a little city, not a lot of Jews, but to me it was somewhat of a challenge. And that sort of became the theme in my life. I was always looking for sort of to expand what I was doing, sort of a restlessness. So in Perth Amboy, before Perth Amboy, I learned how to do milah, how to do circumcision. So I was circumcised. I have 8 sons, so I had a lot of practice. And that time, I learned how to fix a Sefer Torah. We koshered a bakery. We started a Chevra Kadisha, which is the burial society for the dead. We built an eruv. We fixed the mikvah. Pretty much anything a rabbi should do, we tried to do it. But most of all, we tried to get people to move into the community. And it was, I would say, not that successful. We did get some people to move in. Some people weren't as healthy, and it wasn't great. And besides, the community was much older. I was the rabbi of the community / like the little grandson. So I'd give a speech, and all the people in the shul, "Good job, Rabbi," and they'd pinch my cheek. So it was really embarrassing. So at a certain point, we experienced a tragedy in the family. I had a brother who passed away, and at that point, I sort of decided I had enough of the pulpit, And a job opened up in UCLA as an on-campus rabbi. So I moved with my family. At that time we had 6 children. And we moved to California, and we took over the position as a rabbi at the UCLA campus. During that time, I also became the rabbi for the Hollywood crowd. And once a month, I gave a class to famous people. It's called the Hollywood class. And we had writers, producers, directors, and they would come. And one of the motivations of that class was to help my students get jobs. So I connected with all these writers and producers, and then I would try to have them help my students, but not because I wanted my students to get into Hollywood. That wasn't my motivation. I wanted my students to go study in Israel, but I used to play let's make a deal with them. I'll get you a job at Warner Brothers, you go study for a month or 2 in Israel. And they were happy, and I was happy as a rabbi, and that worked out well for everyone. After about 5 years, I got restless again, and I said, why are we only doing this in UCLA? Let's do this in USC, which was the rival to UCLA's USC. And I quietly went down there and built up the program. Then I brought my bosses in and showed them we had it was a singles event that we started with. It was called speed dating. So we had a big speed dating event with 120 students, and we opened up USC. And then over the next year or two, we opened up campuses UCSB, SDSU, UCSD, Cal State Northridge, along with UCLA and USC. So all of those campuses we got up and running, and each one today is a thriving campus. At about 7 years ago, I had the opportunity to meet the donors, a multi-billionaire, and I said, we got to do more. Why are we only doing this in California? Let's do this nationwide. So I started off going to Miami. We opened a program there called CLE. We went to Madison, Wisconsin, opened up a program called GEM. And at that point, I moved to New York with my family that had grown at that time to maybe 8 or 9. Today it's 11 children. And for the past 7 years, I've been living in New York. And my job today is a national director for college outreach. And throughout the year, every week I travel to a different campus. I just made it my schedule yesterday. So I'm visiting Vegas and Orlando and Penn State and Wash U and so on and so forth. And that's pretty much my job. I train rabbis how to be rabbis, and I speak. And that's what motivates me. A few more quick things that you may find interesting. I'm on the radio 3 times a week, 97.5 FM. I have a call-in show today. Okay, so that's that. I also have a website that you may or may not. Anyone heard of Shabbat.com? Raise your hand. Okay, wow, that's good. So Shabbat.com says the world's largest Jewish social network, and it is still growing. We're trying to connect Jews. It's non-denominational. You could sign up, get your parents to sign up, and it's growing, and we love doing that. And maybe the last thing to know is, if you're ever in New York, we do a Shabbaton every week, and we have between 50 and 100 people every week for Shabbat. And how many people here have been to me for Shabbat?
Not enough. We gotta
Rivka Malka, you got to make a pilgrimage. You got to just bring everyone up. So we do that, and we have mixed drinks and l'chaims and singing, and it's just insanity. And that's how we roll in Muncie, New York. So you've never heard that expression, huh? And so that's pretty much my life. So the reason that I give you that sort of forward before I give you the proper talk is that I always feel like we have to look at the next horizon, the next way to expand. There's so much negativity in the world. We are living in the era of negativity. We're living in the era where everyone's got to put everyone else down, one blog after the next. Anyone who rises on any level, everyone else has to cut them down, has to say the person's not sincere, and let's dig through the closet, and let's see what they're all about. We're living in the era that people are simply afraid to make their mark because they don't want to be chopped down. And we have to offset negativity with positivity. And we have the ability to spread positivity to the world. Judaism certainly does an amazing job at it. And we have to become people who emanate, and I think that's what Rivka Malka does so beautifully. She emanates positivity, and people feel good to be themselves, to be Jewish, They're proud of who they are, and they don't have to judge themselves, measure themselves up against anyone else in the room or anyone else in the world. We ourselves are valuable, we're precious, we're priceless. And that's the message of Judaism, and I think that's sort of what motivates me, to find the positivity in people, and let's expand it. And one of the things Shabbat.com does is people who are hosts, who perhaps no one would think to go to their house, or they would be too shy, all of a sudden are having guests, and people are interfacing with each other. For those of you that don't know, it's an amazing story, but I can't say it tonight. My son just got engaged to a girl from the website, from Scotland, who 2 years ago had never met a Jew in her life. And she never met a Jew, and she signed up for Shabbat.com, and she went on this amazing journey, and it ended up, and she's getting married to my son August 26th. So it's incredible when you create positivity and you want to spread it. You know, I think the world is looking for that. The world is looking for the smile, the acceptance, the love, and the growth. And anything else is a waste of time and is relegated to the dustbin when we look back at history. All the negativity and all the negative people who get on these talk radio shows and get up and they're just bashing and smashing. It's not for me, and it shouldn't be for anyone here. It's not growth. Growth happens with sunshine. It happens with light. Okay. So I want to speak about something really basic. I'm going to take off my jacket. Thank you. Thanks. You know, every word has baggage or context, and when you take the word out of its context, you don't really get the true meaning of the word. Let's give you an example, okay? Anti-Semitism, okay? If someone hates Arabs, are they an anti-Semite? Yeah. You hate Arabs, anti-Semite? I'm not talking to hate Arabs. I'm just saying the definition would be correct. If someone dislikes Arabs, they would be anti-Semitic. Why? Because the Arabs are a Semitic people. What does Semitic mean, anyone? Semitic. Semite. Sounds like termite. What's a Semite? A Semite comes from one of the three sons of Noah. Noah had three sons: Sem, or Shem in Hebrew, Cham and Yafes. So Shem, or Sem, which is the English way of saying it, had 10 generations. After 10 generations came Abraham. Abraham had a son named Isaac, Jacob, you and I. That's where we come from. But Abraham also had a son named Ishmael, and out of Ishmael came the Arabs. And therefore, technically, the Arabs come from Ishmael, comes from Abraham, comes from Sem. So if a person dislikes Arabs, they're an anti-Semite. But in reality, is that really what the word means? Obviously not. If someone's anti-Semitic, it means they hate the Jews, right? It's just the baggage, the context of the word. You can't take the word out of context. If I step on a bunch of ants, there's a hill of ants, and I start smushing all you little kids, they smush the ants, did I perpetrate a Holocaust? Yes. I mean, for them probably, right? But if I say the Holocaust, what am I referring to? I'm referring to the event, the tragedy, the calamity that took place to the Jews between 39 and 45. Today, that's what the word means. When someone says the Holocaust Museum, even though there's a Holocaust taking place in Darfur, and there have been other Holocausts, but the word Holocaust today, the badge of the word is what happened to the Jewish people. That's what it refers to. Words have context. Now, eventually, throughout history, the context changes, and then you deal with it then. Words have context. Even the word Jew has context and meaning, okay? Jew. Are you Jewish? Jewish? What does the word Jew mean? Jew. I'm Jew. The word Jew means thank you. Did you know that? The word Jew means thank you. So next time an anti-Semite looks at you and says, "Hey, Jew," what do you say back? You're welcome. That's what Jew. Jew means, we're not the people of the book, we're the people of the thank you. We're the people who excel at saying thank you, right? Jew comes from the word Judah, which comes from the word Todah, right? We're the people who say thank you about everything, before we eat, after we eat, when we come out of the bathroom. Jew means thank you. So words have content, words have baggage. So let's take Jewish, and this is sort of the major idea I want to present over here. Judaism, okay? I was speaking to a group of students from Columbia, and I said, Judaism is a fill in the blank. Judaism is a, and I got primarily religion. Judaism is a religion, a people, a race, but primarily a religion. And I asked how many people would agree that it's a religion, and pretty much everyone raised their hand. The ironic thing is, not only is Judaism not a religion, one of the worst things that ever happened to Judaism is that it was called a religion. Judaism is not a religion. The Torah takes great pains to avoid the word religion in reference to Judaism. In every place, in every spot in the Torah, and I don't just mean the 5 books, I mean the whole Tanakh, all of the writings in the scriptures, whenever the Torah could have put the word religion, it deletes it. It's striking. Other religions call themselves religions very happily. If a person wanted to convert to Islam, one of the lines they say is there's no religion like Islam. Christianity calls it the religion of love. Brother, right? Judaism, no religion. Don't give me religion. It's actually called a religion once. Once in the whole Tanakh, it's called a religion by the enemy of the Jews. The enemy of the Jews called us a religion. His name was Haman, or Haman. You know the story of Purim? Right, Haman, boo, thank you. I was like, who's going to go boo? Right, excellent. So Haman, the enemy of the Jews, said, V'dasehem shonos. They're just another religion. Don't be so impressed. They're a different religion. But he was wrong, we are not. Judaism is not a religion. It was never meant to be a religion. It doesn't function like a religion. It's something else entirely. And I'll tell you what it is. Judaism is not a religion, it's a relationship. It is called a relationship in the Torah over 500 times. Never a religion. Every time in the Torah where it should say religion, it erases it and puts in the word relationship. For those Hebrew speakers over here, B'ni B'chori Yisrael, Im Yelad Shashuim, Mashkech Min HaChalonos, Meitz Min HaCharakim, Kol Dodi Hine Zebadofek. Again and again and again and again. Relationship, relationship, relationship. Says the Almighty twice a day, say in Shema, De'ahavta es Hashem Elokecha, B'chol Levavcha V'chol Nafsh. Just tell me you love me, I'll tell you I love you. Relationship, relationship. Now, the difference between religion and relationship is so vast. It's such a different thing that everything that you've ever learned about Judaism, you're going to end up scrapping by the end of the night. It's that drastic, what I'm going to present to you tonight. And it's accurate, and it's authentic, and it's not New Age. It's real. Okay, first of all, the great difference between religion and relationship. So let me give you, there are many differences, but I'll give you one. In religion, one of the hallmarks, the highlights of religion is the reward and punishment. Reward and punishment is mentioned in every religious text. Every religious text, and it's always the afterlife. So you could speak about purgatory, you could speak about Hades, you could speak about the rapture, you could speak about 70 virgins, on and on. In the Torah, how many times is heaven and hell mentioned? 0. Why? Because the Torah is a relationship. And in a relationship, you don't use a carrot and a stick. Does that make sense? In a relationship, you don't say, honey, please, make sure to have supper ready tomorrow. Otherwise, I have a baseball bat in the car. Right? you wouldn't say that, would you? Right? You wouldn't say it. Because it's insanity. A relationship doesn't depend on reward and punishment. A relationship is done, the motivation, the engine, the gasoline is love. Even the punishments that are in the Torah that are mentioned, we can get into that. They're all something called keri, which means when we ignore Hashem, He ignores us, and the punishments are a result of being ignored. That's all it is. But I'll speak to you more about it. I just don't want to get into that. But those punishments, if you don't want a relation, I'll treat you like there's no relation, and then you're on your own. And then that's the only time the Torah has the tochacha. The tochacha is all about being on our own. But heaven and hell, not mentioned. It doesn't mean we don't believe in it. We do believe that there is ultimate reward and punishment, because it would make no sense if there was no consequence to our actions. But in the Torah, which is the great book of relationship, you don't threaten it. Obviously, even in a relationship, there is reward and punishment. If one is unfaithful, the punishment may be divorce and losing the house and kids. But you don't hang that as a threat over the person, because that's not how one builds a relation. Are we understanding each other? So the Torah leaves that stuff out because it's a relation. Let me give you another example of the difference between religion and a relationship. Another example. Here's a guy's secret. Girls don't usually hear the secret unless a guy like me mentions it. So here's a special guy's secret so that you can hang this over your husband's heads. You know? When our wives go into labor, and believe me, I've experienced this 11 times. So the wives go into labor, they say, honey, got to get to the hospital, half an hour apart, 20 minutes, 15, 10 minutes of our contractions. We got to get there, because if we don't get there, we're going to have the baby in the house. And no one wants to do that unless you do want to do that. But if you don't want to do that, you got to get to the hospital. So guys, when they hear, got to get to the hospital, what do? They break into this great big smile. And the wife thinks to herself, oh, that's so sweet. We're going to go through this together, and we practice Lamaze, and we're going to have this great bonding experience. The guys aren't really smiling about that. The guys, most guys, what they're smiling about when the wife says, you got to get to the hospital? I'll tell you what they're smiling. You're not going to want to hear it. But I'll tell you anyways. The guys smile at? It's not the only thing, but one of the things they smile about is, yes, I get to go into the car, turn on the ignition, and go 100 miles an hour through every red light. Baby time, baby! Right? You get into the car, that's it. Because guys like to go fast, right? That's why he bought the fast car. So the only excuse, every guy thinks, yes, I'm going to get to the hospital. I can't wait till my wife has a baby because I get to go into I had a Chrysler 300 Hemi. I want to show it to that's my baby time car, right? We always go to the furthest hospital. No, I'm kidding. So we're kidding. Because what does the guy say to himself? He says, look, one of two things are going to happen. If I don't get caught, I have my joyride. I have my own little private Autobahn, right? And if I do get caught, what do I tell the cop?
Yeah, what's up, baby?
Right? No cop wants to deliver a baby in the back seat. So what do you get? An escort. That's happened to one of our kids. We got an escort through Manhattan. It was so cool. So either way, because the laws of the state are like religion. There are do's and there don'ts, and if you could prove why something doesn't apply to you, you're out of here. Doesn't apply. I'm having a baby. The law shouldn't apply. Relationship doesn't function like that. If you're always looking to get out of things in a relationship, what kind of relationship are you in? A bad one, one's dead or done, right? The opposite. The highlight of a good relationship is you go the extra mile. If I wake up in the middle of the night and my wife sees that I'm standing, she says, oh, honey, can you get me a drink? So I can get her a cup of water. But if I love her, what am I going to ask her?
What would you like?
What?
What would you like?
Who said that? Okay, could we play this game?
So what would you like?
What would you like? How about some Coke?
You like ice?
Yes, thank you for asking.
Do you want a straw?
A straw in bed. Dribble a little, I love it. Perfect. You'd make a good husband one day. Because if you're in a relationship, you go the extra mile. Says the Almighty, I don't want religion. I don't want you to feel like there's a set of laws and the Jewish guilt is going to make you do it. And you picture Woody Allen and you picture neurotic. This is not what it's about. It's about love. It's about positivity. It's about building something beautiful together. I want to give you an image, okay? The holiest country, according to Judaism and other religions, would be Israel, right? The Holy Land, right? That's what it's called. And the holiest city would be Jerusalem. And the holiest place in Jerusalem would be Temple Mount, the Kotel, which is Temple Mount. And the holiest place in the temple is a room or an area called the Holy of Holies. And what was in the Holy of Holies? There was an ark. And the ark had the 10 Commandments inside of it. And it had 2 golden figurines on top of the ark. And one had and they had wings, and it was holy. It was so holy that when the Almighty spoke to Moses, he spoke to him from between the two golden figurines, right on top of the ark. It was like insanely holy. You know, the high priest was the only person allowed to go into the Holy of Holies only once a year, and if he was not on the proper level, he would die on the spot. So every Yom Kippur, when the high priest would walk in, they would have to tie a rope around his waist, because if he died, no one could even go in to take him out. And it's very, very holy. The Almighty himself speaks between these two golden figurines. What are the figurines? One had the face of a man, one had the face of a woman. One represents God, one represents us, and they gaze into each other's eyes with love. Picture this for a moment. The holiest country, the holiest city, the holiest place, and the Holy of Holies. If you take a needle and you stick it to the center of the Jewish spiritual universe, you find yourself between the gaze of love. Nothing to do with the religion, everything to do with the relationship. As a matter of fact, the Talmud even says that when the Almighty was upset with the Jews, you know what happened to these golden figurines? They would swivel. Their backs would turn towards each other like a couple who were quarreling. I'm not speaking to you. Well, then I'm not speaking to you. That was the metaphor. The imagery was so powerful. It was all about love. I want you to listen to this story. It's a beautiful story. There was a lady, and she's waiting for her lover to come home. And she's been waiting for months, and he's supposed to come home tonight. She's so excited, and it's 8 o'clock, 9 o'clock, 10 o'clock, and he's not coming. So finally she says, you know what, I'm going to lie down, and if he comes, I'll get up. So she takes off her nightgown, she takes off her slippers, and she goes underneath the quilt, and it's winter, and she's cold, she's all snuggled up, and she falls asleep. About 20 minutes later, hello, I'm home. And she hears the knocking, and she says, I should answer the door. It's my lover, I can hear his voice. But I can't get up, I'm so comfortable. I'm in my quilt, and I just can't. And he's still knocking, hello? And she didn't know what to do. She's like, I can't get up. I took out my nightgown, I can't put it back on. I took out my slippers, I got my feet dirty. And then a few moments later, the knocking stops, and she's lying there in the darkness and the silence. And then she comes to her senses. What was I thinking? My lover's at the door, and I can't get up to open the door. So she jumps up. She puts on her nightgown and slippers. She swings open the door. Welcome home! But the doorway is empty. He's gone. So now she begins to panic. She runs out into the street screaming his name. Where are you? I'm sorry. I should have opened the door. Please come back. Please come home. And the night watchman who's on patrol, he sees this lady running around in her slippers and a nightgown. And he goes over to her and he says, are you okay? Is everything okay? Do you need a doctor? Do you need a police? How can I help you? She says, no, I don't need any of that. I know I look crazy running around here like this, but I don't care because I may have just lost out on the opportunity to connect to the one that I love. And if I can't connect to the one that I love, life is not worth living. So I will continue to scream in the darkness until I can be reunited with my love. What Harlequin romance did I just take that out of? My friends, that was Torah. That was, word for word, one of the holiest books of all of Torah, called Shir HaShirim, Song of Songs. Does that sound like religion to you? It's the metaphor between us and the Almighty. Is that religion? It's pure relationship. It's longing. It's saying, I want to connect more badly, and sometimes I'm asleep, and sometimes I need to be woken up, and sometimes I don't hear the knocking, or I'm just like, I'm too lazy to get up, but ultimately I want to be reunited. The metaphors scream again and again, it's relationship. And by the way, this changes everything. If you look at Judaism like a relationship, all the mitzvot, all the commandments, all of the customs in Judaism are now seen through the eyes of relationship, and they change. I'll give you an example. When I take my wife out to eat, she's a sushi lover, so we go out to sushi almost every time actually. And when we go out, she says, do me a favor, turn off your phone. Because I get a lot of phone calls and she doesn't want to compete with the phone. Does that make any sense? The girls are the only ones nodding here. Guys will learn. So she says, turn it off. So I used to leave it on vibrate, but you know what happens when you leave it on vibrate? So it sits and it dances when the phone rings, and then like my wife stares daggers at me like, you're gonna forget? No, just leave it. So then afterwards I have to wait till she's not looking to go, oh darn. So now she says, do me a favor, she says, leave it in the car. That's what I do, because she's trying to connect. Makes sense, right? Or she comes into my office, and sometimes I'm tapping away on the computer and she wants to speak to me about something. So if I lose myself and I speak to her while continuing my work, she'll stop speaking. And I'll realize she stopped. So I'll turn around and say, up here, honey, do me a favor. When I speak to you, close it, speak to me. I'm trying to connect with you. And when I leave, then you can turn it back on. Makes sense, right? You know what that is? It's simple. That's Shabbat. That's exactly what Shabbat is. The Almighty says, listen, I know how busy you are all week. I know what midterms are and finals, and mortgages and bills and deadlines. I get it. I'm God. I made this stuff. I promise you I know this stuff. But if once a week you and I don't have special time, you know what's going to happen to our relationship? It's simple. It's going to die. You want our relationship to die? You want it to survive? So do me a favor. Once a week, shut off your phone. Don't make me compete with Twitter. God, you compete with Twitter. It's like insanity, right? You don't have to update your Facebook. Once a week, you and I, let's have our special time. Go take a shower, get dressed, we're going out. That's what we do. So before Shabbat, take a shower, we'll put on our best clothing. Now put out a white tablecloth. Light some candles. Pour some wine. Shabbat is a romantic dinner. And it always has been that way. We just totally lost sight of it. Shabbat is romance. Think of it. What do we sing on Shabbat? Bo'i chala, bo'i chala. Come my bride, come my bride, come my beloved, my queen, my princess. I've been so busy all week I couldn't focus on you. But once a week you're my priority. L'cha dodi likrat kala. Come my beloved, I'm coming to greet you. I won't make you compete with anything. I put out my finest china. I bought delicious food. I have delicious wine. I lit the candles. I mean, think about it. Did you ever hear of flowers for Shabbat? Why does Shabbat need flowers? It's simple, because it's romance. Do you know why we eat challah? You know challah is braided? Do you know where that comes from? It comes from the idea that the Talmud says that when God created Eve, before God introduced Eve to Adam, it says he braided her hair to make her attractive. Now, this is obviously a mystical concept. You can't imagine God braiding hair. But the idea, well, the idea that the Talmud is promoting over here is that God wanted to create affection and love and attraction. So in order to remember that Shabbat is all about creating love and attraction, we braid our challah like Eve's hair was braided. You know those 2 candles that we light on Friday night? Minimum of 2? Do you know that one represents us, one represents the Almighty? And we're challenged, can we connect? Can our special time be worthwhile? And if we do Shabbat right, and we sing and we dance and we feel the romance, and we make it a priority, and we just push everything aside, Shabbat is mine, it's sacred, it's holy, I won't take a job then, I won't do my work then, I can survive, the world has survived for thousands of years. I can also, I'm going to connect, madly in love with the one above. Connecting, if you do it right, those 2 candles, one that represents us, one represents the Almighty. Come Havdalah time, what happens to those 2 candles? That's right. They embrace, they hug, they kiss. Congratulations, says the Almighty. You've succeeded. Our special time is real. It's been successful. Now go. Have an amazing week. My blessings are with you. Like we say in L'chadodi, Kihim Makor HaBracha. The source of blessing is Shabbat. Now go have an amazing time. But don't you forget, special time is coming up. And that's why we say in our prayers each day of the week, Hayom Yom Rishon Shabbat. Today is Sunday, but special time is coming. Today is Monday, but special time is coming. You know how we smell spices? Besamim? Did you ever go to Havdalah? Spices? And a person goes around, did you smell? Did you smell? Smell? Like, oh, I smelled. Like, what? What are we smelling? That's like, you know the problem is, like Judaism has become like people with obsessive compulsive disorder. Like, everyone, now it's time to smell stuff. Smell it? Thumbs up, I smelled it. Now it's time to stand, now it's time to sit. We do whatever they tell us. Because that's religion, right? Now we stand, now we sit, now we stand, now we sit. Now we eat. Now we eat the matzah, now we eat the latke, now we eat the kugel, and the kasha, and the knish, and the kishka, and the cake, and anything with a cake because it's kosher, except for cake with the C, right? And, right? Then now it's time to wave. Now we do our waving stuff. So now I wave when I pray. I wave the flag, Simchas Torah. I wave the chicken over my head before Yom Kippur. I wave the lulav and Esther. We do lots of waving, lots of standing, lots of sitting. And that's Judaism. It's become people who don't know what they're doing, and we do it just because. And people wonder, why is Judaism failing? That's why. Did you ever see Fiddler on the Roof? You can't be Jewish without seeing Fiddler on the Roof, right? It's the ultimate Jewish movie. It's so Jewish that the producer of Fiddler on the Roof, you know what his name is? Norman Jewison. That's really his name. His name is Jewison, spelled Jewson. The irony is he wasn't Jewish. He was not Jewish. But he produced Fiddler on the Roof. And Fiddler on the Roof was one of those movies that if you miss the first 5 minutes, farfallen, you can't understand the rest of the movie. You saw Fiddler on the Roof? Let me remind you the first 5 minutes. You can't, it's like you ever come to the theater late and you say, I don't understand what's going on. So Fiddler on the Roof is one of those movies you can't miss the first 5 minutes. So I'll fill you in if you ever miss the first 5 minutes. It goes like this. Da 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 join da 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 hey da 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 enter Tanya tradition. Wait for it. He doesn't say that, but he means it. Tradition, religion, tradition. I don't know what the hell I'm doing, but I do it because it's tradition. And the rest of the movie is kids leave Judaism. That's the movie. It's not a happy movie. When a guy dances around at the beginning of the movie saying, I don't know what I'm doing, but I do it because it's religion, which is a statement of tradition. I just do it because you're supposed to do it because I don't know why. His kids are going to leave. And that's what happens. We are the story. Our generation is a story of Fiddler on the Roof. When relationship disappears, or you're left with this tradition, everyone's got a tradition. So the Italians have their pasta, the French have their wine, and we get gefilte fish. You get the raw end of the deal on that one, right? And everyone's got their tradition, and what happens is Judaism disappears. You know, it's very simple. You know, in Federation buildings all across the United States and North America, there's little old ladies, old men with white hair who are wringing their hands together saying, what do we do to save the Jewish youth? What do we do? What do we do? The Jewish youth are leaving. Let's send them to Israel again and again and again, because Israel's going to save us. No, it's very simple. The solution's simple. You know what the solution is? Stop teaching religion. Stop teaching religion. You know what religion is? Can I be very honest? You probably never heard this from a rabbi. You know what religion is? Religion is an accident of DNA. That's all it is. You happen to be born Jewish, so yay Jews. If you had been born Christian, you'd be waving the Christian flag. If you had been born Buddhist, you'd be saying yay Buddhist. So it's sort of like being born in New York and being a Yankees fan. The luck of the draw. That's all it is. Born Baltimore, you're an Orioles fan. Born in Boston, you're a Red Sox fan. So yeah, you happen to be born Jewish, so yay Jews. Is that all it is? That's what we understand. If Judaism's a religion, then that's all it is. You're an accident. You know, I don't like Reform Judaism. I don't like conservative Judaism either. And I don't like Orthodox Judaism. Oh, now it's okay. The truth of the matter is, I don't like any of it. Because when the Almighty took us to Mount Sinai and had us stand around and said, do you want my Torah? He didn't divide us like a pizza pie. You be kibbutz, you be chassid, you be Chabad, you be Breslov, you be renewal, you be Reconstructionist, You be Reform, you be Orthodox, you be ultra, and everyone divides, and we divide ourselves, and soon we're dividing ourselves into oblivion. Do you know that? You don't look to me, I don't look at you, I don't speak to you, I don't speak to me, you're Jewish, right? That's what happened to Judaism. That's a product of religion. Relationship, it was never about that. As a matter of fact, the Rashi, who's a great commentator, took great pains to say that when the Jewish people stood around the mountain, it was Ki'ish echad b'leiv echad, as one person with one heart and one goal. And the goal was to be in a relationship with the Almighty. Now, relationship has rules. A real relationship, right? Obviously, if you're married, God willing, you'll all be married one day. Amen. When you get married, you're going to have plenty of rules. You just don't know it yet. If I prepared supper, don't go out to eat. If there's garbage there, make sure to take it out and replace it with a new bag. Right? Don't leave it right. On and on and on. It goes on and on. But the point of marriage is not the rules, but the point is love. But part of being in a relationship is rules as well. But the idea is the relationship. Judaism has rules. I'm not putting aside the rules. They're very important. But they're the rules that allow the relationship to grow. But when it becomes about the rules and not about the relationship, so eventually we just divide ourselves. Well, I have to do this, you can't do this, I can't do that. And it just dies, and that's what's happening in our generation. I'll give you another example of Judaism as relationship. You know, we pray 3 times a day. There's an idea to pray 3 times a day. Why do people pray 3 times a day? Is that because that's what's on our program? Everyone got a program, right? The program, the Muslims got their program, it said 5 times, darn, right? Jews, 3 times I can handle that, right? The Christians, but before they eat and sleep, they say a little prayer, and then on Sunday, right? They got it, right? Everyone's got the program, you got to follow the program. No, that's not the way it works. We pray 3 times a day because it's supposed to mimic relationship. And in a relationship, you connect a minimum of 3 times a day. Isn't that so? You wake up in the morning, good morning, honey, how are you? 25 years, my wife and I have a coffee together. It's a moment. It's a great way to start a day. Taster's, right? Best way. Then in the afternoon, at some point, you check in. How are you? Are you okay? Did you get some rest? Do you want me to bring home some milk? Right? At some point of the day, you check in. And then in the evening, you enjoy each other, you have dinner together, you enjoy each other's company physically. 3 times a day is a normal way of connecting. So the Almighty says, let you connect with me 3 times a day. It's supposed to mimic a relationship. Someone said to me, Rabbi, I'm a bad Jew. I said, what do you call yourself names for? He says, I'm a bad Jew because I only pray once a year on Yom Kippur. So I said, well, maybe your prayer is awesome. Maybe you're like an awesome prayer giver on Yom Kippur. He said, no, I really hate it, actually. So I said, listen to me. If there's one day a year I don't think you should be going, it's Yom Kippur. If you got to choose one day, don't make it Yom Kippur. Because you know what Yom Kippur is? Boring. Yom Kippur is, right? Is Yom Kippur tough? You remember you were kids and you're standing next to your parents and you're there and you have to make these bathroom excuses to go out and play with your friends in the hall. Right? You go out and then you come back a half an hour later. Where they give you the eye? Where were you? And you hold yourself. Oh. I know. And then you go out again. Yeah. Right? In and out. Right? So this way, and then when you look at the siddur, then the siddur is like frightening. The machzor, right? Because it's 800 pages, and you look, it's like, 8? Are you kidding me, in one day? And then you remember your sense of relief when you realize half hour in Hebrew, half hour in English. It's only 400, I can handle that. And then if you do stay, one of 2 things are happening. Either you hear the cantor going, I'm not enjoying that, that's not musical. Or the rabbi standing up there asking for money. We have to create a sisterhood, wink for Mahjong and this and that. So everyone will donate. And that's why I came to synagogue, for everyone to donate. And then the worst thing is if you actually look in the translation. Did you ever look in the translation? On Rosh Hashanah it is written, on Yom Kippur it is sealed, who will live and who will die. die! There's a choir that goes, die, die! You say, I'll probably die. I had like a run of bad luck, and then it gives you choices how to die. Remember? Remember that? Remember that, right? Who by fire, who by water? And I always pick water because it's less. I mean, I picture it's less painful. But you have to like picture how to die. It's not true. I don't pick water. You know what I pick? I almost always choose pestilence because I haven't figured out what they are yet. If you know what it is, don't tell me. I know pestilence. Right? I'll take pestilence for $50. You know? Whatever. So that's Yom Kippur. So I said if there's one day a year I would say don't go, it's Yom Kippur. Right? But if you want to say one thing about yourself, if you want to say, don't say you're not a bad Jew. You're just not in a relationship. Because what kind of relationship checks in one time a year? You know? It's like the guy who comes strolling in. Hey, what's up, God? What's going on? How's it hanging? You and I, we should get together. Do lunch. Not today, it's Yom Kippur. Different day, we do lunch. Right? And the funniest thing, when I ran the Hollywood class, I had this Hollywood thing, and these famous people would come in and they would do the whole Hollywood thing. You know the Hollywood code? Here's the Hollywood code. You come in, and if you shoot someone once, it means that they're superior. See, the guy comes strolling, hey, hey, hey. Right? If you shoot them twice, it means that, they're a little bit of parity. Hey, hey, I missed it. And then if you use two guns, it means you want something from them. Hey! You ever see that? It's like you feel like take a shower afterwards. Hey! And then they're going around, the whole thing is like, feels not real. Hey, are you gonna, we should do lunch. You and I. Do lunch? And they're all going, I don't know anyone's name, but they're going, do lunch, do lunch, do lunch, And I'm thinking, they're never gonna do lunch. There's not even a real phone. Where they're putting the numbers, It's a Palm Pilot. There's real and then there's fake. The Almighty says, I want to be in a real relationship with you. If you can handle real relationship, I love it. I want it. You want to be in a religion? There's plenty of religions out there. Rub your nose against the ground. Be worried about everything else. Be a nervous wreck. Try to get saved. But you want to be in a relationship with me? Just say twice a day the Ahavtas Hashem. Tell me you love me. Tell me you want something more. Now, I'll tell you one sort of side point. It's a funny point, but I travel every week. And whenever I travel, I usually ask for the middle seat, which is sort of weird because most people ask for the window or the aisle, but I always ask for the middle because it gives me twice a chance of meeting a Jew. This way I can meet a Jew. So it's funny, the Almighty always makes it that I always meet either a Jew or a missionary. Usually the same person. So I'm speaking to this. So there's this one guy, and I'm sitting next to him, and it's great when I sit next to the missionary. It's more like fun. It's like toying with him because I know the New Testament. So he'll bring me his proofs from Isaiah 53s and 51s, and I don't look like a rabbi, so I'm just. Yeah, and then I just jump all over it, and it's just like game over. So this guy is like trying to convert me during one of my flights, and he's going on and on. I'm about to jump, like I'm waiting for my moment, and then suddenly he says something that throws me off. He says, but there's something I don't like about Christianity either. You know what I don't like? So many Christians think that Christianity is a religion, but really it's a relationship. So like, what? I said, like they say in Israel, daka means 1 second. And I took a moment to compose myself, and I said, no, it's not. It's a religion. He goes, excuse me? I said, no, it's totally a religion. He says, why do you say that? I said, I'll prove it to you 2 ways that you're a religion, not a relationship. I said, number 1, what would happen if I felt nothing towards Jesus? I didn't feel any connection at all, nothing. But I believed he was a Lord and Savior. Am I saved, yes or no? He says, if you believe you're saved. I said, then you're a religion. You're a religion. A relationship needs an investment. It needs an emotional connection. The Torah says clearly that you can keep every mitzvah in the Torah. But if you do it sans the joy, minus the joy that's inherent in a relationship because you want to do it, the Almighty says, I reject it. If you don't do it with joy, I reject it. If you could just believe and you're saved, then you're exactly what a religion is. I said, number two, I'll prove it to you another way. I said, if you look at the history of Christianity, wherever the Christians went, they wanted to convert people. That's where missionaries come from. So they'll try to convert people. And through most of history, until this century, how did they convince people to convert? It wasn't through smiles. That's like very recent. That's like since the 1960s. Throughout history, it was either like convert or die. Right? Convert or die. I said, please explain to me what kind of relationship is built like that. Love me or I kill you. Right? It doesn't happen. Not only that, but even missionizing, Jews don't do. Because you can't try to convince somebody to be in a relationship. If you're Jewish already, so then you're in the relationship by virtue of being Jewish, so then it can be explained to the value of the relationship. But do you ever see Jewish missionaries? Do you ever see a Jewish missionary? You ever see two old rabbis with beards knocking on someone's door holding a big Talmud? Excuse me. Would you like to see the Talmud, the good news? It's hard to read, it's Aramaic, but it's very interesting. Can I put it down? It's very heavy. You never see that? Because we don't missionize because it's supposed to be a relation. Relation comes from you. That's the key. That's the one message. It's very simple. It's not a complicated speech. It's one simple message. Judaism is not a religion, it's a relationship. Once you get that, that's the launching pad to revisit everything. You couldn't invest because the Judaism that you were given didn't resonate. And it didn't resonate because it was an accident. But you could invest in a relationship. We all want to be in a good relationship. I'll finish with this story. I've told this story here before a few years ago, but I think I'll share it with you. There are enough new people here, it's worthwhile. 7 years ago, I moved to New York, and we moved to Muncie, and a year after we moved, our house burned down. I still remember clearly. I was in the University of Texas doing my training, and the rabbi, my wife calls me up, and she calls me up in the middle of like this round table discussion with the rabbis from Texas, and she says, honey, I just have a question to ask you. Does God love us? Yeah. She says, okay, one more question. Is everything that God does for the best? I said, you are totally scaring me. What happened? Something happened. What happened? She says, okay, the kids are safe. But the house is gone. Would you like to speak to the fire chief? So, they hands the phone, the fire chief, and he speaks inside of the kitchen. Just burnt up a lot of the house, water damage, smoke damage. I had a long JetBlue flight back from Texas, picturing where is my family and all the kids going to be tonight. And in a week from then was actually Passover. So my poor wife had cleaned the whole house for Passover. Of course, everyone came over to me and said, "Ooh, this year you really burnt your hummus, didn't you?" That was funny the first 99 times I heard that. I remember people say, okay, so whatever. So we moved to a temporary place for a year, and once we had to move and rebuild the house, I figured let's rebuild it in a way that we could fit a lot of people. So we changed the floor plan, and we rebuilt it in a way that the dining room is much, much longer than before. And I figured we'll do a Shabbaton every Shabbat. And that's what we do. Every Shabbat we do a Shabbaton. This week over 70 people have reserved. Some going home. We have tons of people coming from LIU and from Queens College, and the New York College is coming this week. And we have this big dining room. And we custom made a dining room table. When the dining table is totally opened up, it'll hold 62 people. This is a very long dining room table. And usually we have to add on tables. So it's just an amazing way to do Shabbat every week. I told you, you got to make a pilgrimage, right? So after doing that, we thought, wouldn't it be amazing to have services that would be relationship services. No more, let's do it with singing and dancing and love and friendship. Let's just make an amazing service. It would be a faithful service. We're not going to change the service, but let's inject it with relationship. So we started doing a Kalbach Minyan Friday night. You know what a Kalbach Minyan is, of course. And then for the day, I thought we'll have services. The only thing is, in order to have services in the day, you need a Torah. And we didn't own a Torah. Not that many people own a Torah. The synagogues own one. And I couldn't afford a Torah because new Torahs begin at 35 grand. And I didn't have 35 grand to drop on a Torah. So I didn't know what to do. So I did what probably any of you would have done. And I went out to Craigslist. And I figured maybe we'll find a Torah on Craigslist. Who knows, right? Everything's there. So I put in Jewish Torah on Craigslist. And one day I saw an ad. And the ad read, for sale, Jewish Torah, which I saw as a positive. Jewish Torah, 11 inches tall, 11 inches high, 200 years old. And I'm thinking, wow, an antique miniature Torah on Craigslist? Like, there's got to be a catch. So I called up the fellow, and I said, a real Torah, are you sure? I said, I'd love to see it. He says, I'm in Philadelphia. And I said, well, listen, I live in Muncie, New York. It's about a 2.5-hour drive. He says, I'll drive it up to your house. I have time on Sunday. I said, really? Because I'm not committing to buying it if you make the drive. I may just decide not to buy it. He says, no, I have time. Don't worry about it. He comes to my house on Sunday, beat up old car, not a wealthy fellow, comes out of the car, no kippah on, maybe 60, 65 years old, and he's holding a blanket. He brings it into the house, and he puts the blanket on the dining room table. We unroll the blanket, and there, sure enough, is an authentic miniature antique Torah. And I got really excited. But I don't want to show him I'm excited, because what's he going to do? The jack of the price. I'm just trying to play it cool, like, nice Torah, nice. I got 4 of them upstairs, but 4 little miniature antique Torah. I said, where did you get the Torah from? We're like, where do you get it? So he says, well, my father was a rabbi in the Catskills, an older synagogue, and when he passed away, the synagogue ended up closing down. They auctioned everything off, and the only thing I kept for myself was this little miniature Torah. So I said, well, that's amazing. The Torah has history, it had provenance, and I lost my cool. I said, you know what I would do with this Torah? We would sing with it, we would dance, we would have bar mitzvahs with it, we would sing this Torah, and I'm like going on and on, I'm like totally like a babbled on and on. So he looks at me, and he gets these tears in his eyes. So I stopped speaking. I said, I'm sorry, did I say anything? I didn't mean to offend. He said, no, I wish I had somebody like you growing up. He said, I don't know, what do you mean? So he said, I wish I had someone like you. You see, even though my father was a rabbi, we didn't see eye to eye. You see, he was a Holocaust survivor. And I had questions about my Judaism, and he didn't like me to ask questions. People died for this. What are you asking questions? And then he passed away when I was 15, and I was left without a father. A few years later, I went to college. I met a beautiful girl. She was Buddhist. We went out a few years, and then she said, if I convert, she'll marry me. And I converted. And for the past 50 or so years, I've been a practicing Buddhist. And this Torah has been sitting in my closet, gathering dust. I'm looking at him, and I feel so bad. Here's a person, father was a Holocaust survivor, father was a rabbi, and he just never had the chance, never had a wow, never had an opportunity to learn and grow. And I'm just feeling bad at the whole thing. Suddenly he looks at me and says, you know what I just realized? This Torah, it's yours. I said, excuse me? He said, it's yours. I want you to have it. I said, for free? He said, yeah. I think you'll do good things with it. It's yours. I say, thank you? Like, you're just going to give it? He said, don't say thank you. I think God wants you to have it. Maybe in that merit one day, I'll find my way back. Who knows? Have a good day. And he leaves the Torah on my dining room table, and he walks out to his car, drives back to Philly, and I'm left with this miniature Torah. Now I have to find an ark. And that's another problem, because most arks are like this. They're 8, 9 feet tall, and you can't put an 11-inch Torah in a 9-foot ark. It looks ridiculous. Where's the Torah? Right there, look carefully. It's in the corner. I don't see it. Other corner. Right? It just, it's got to be size appropriate, So I'm thinking, where can I find a little ark? So I did what any of you would have done, and I went on to eBay. And I look at eBay, probably also looked at Craigslist. I'm looking at eBay, and each day I'm looking, trying to find something that would be an appropriate ark. One day I read an ad, and the ad reads, "For sale, Jewish Christian piece of furniture." And I'm thinking, and there's a picture of what looks to me like a Jewish ark. It's got pillars, it's got doors, it's beautiful, hand carving, flowers, diamonds. The only thing that was strange was at the very top was a big golden cross. So I called up the people who were selling it and I said, "What's the deal with this piece of furniture?" They said, "Oh, we're a company in North Carolina and we are liquidating an estate that belonged to a priest and he passed away with no kids and we're liquidating it." So I said to them, "Listen, my dear friends, folks, wherever you guys are, that's not a Christian piece, that's a Jewish Torah ark. I'm a rabbi, I recognize an ark." Anyone could have recognized it. That cross must have been added later. Do me a favor, I'll wait on the phone, tell me if the wood of the cross and the wood of the ark match. They said, "Okay, we'll be right back." They come back a minute later, they say, "It looks to us like the piece of furniture is about 100 years old and the cross is about 20 years old." So I said, "There you go. This ark was hand-carved, most probably by some Yiddilah, some Jew in Europe, with his blood, sweat, tears, and a jackknife. It somehow ends up in the hands of a priest. He slaps a cross on it, calls it Christian, and I'm going to take it back for the Jews. What do you want to end the auction right now?" So he gives me a price, I bargain him down, and, and I buy it. And that was it. And I was very happy. I'm about to hang up the phone when I noticed that at the very bottom of this piece of furniture is a little plaque. So I say to them, "Listen, I already bought it. I'm not going to go back. But just do me a favor. Send me a picture of the plaque. I'm curious." And I was curious because I just wanted to make sure that this actually wasn't a Christian artifact, that I'm superimposing the status of ark because I desperately need an ark for my cute little miniature Torah. So I said, "Send me a picture of the plaque." They sent me a picture of the plaque, and right when I saw it, I got the chills. First of all, it was in Hebrew. Yeah. Secondly, what it said was so striking. I've never seen these words on an ark, ever. It said the following. It said on the plaque, on this ark, "Hinei lo yanum v'lo yishan, shomer Yisrael." Behold, the guardian of Israel will never sleep. He will never slumber. And I'm thinking, how amazing is this? Here's a Torah, belonged to a rabbi, a Holocaust survivor. It ends up in the hands of his son who converts to Buddhism. And this Buddhist Torah is going to sit in this Christian ark, all in order to bring Jews back to Judaism. Behold, the guardian of Israel doesn't sleep. He doesn't slumber. He wants us to find our way back home. He loves us. He's awake. He's waiting for us. Like that story where the lover is waiting. The Almighty is waiting. He's just wants us to connect, wants the relationship. I was so inspired. So a few days later, a truck comes up. It's got a crate. We rip open the crate. Moment of truth. Will the Torah be too big? Right? It's really hard to measure. We put it in. It was like Cinderella's slipper. It couldn't have been more perfect. You come to my house, you'll be amazed. Put it in our dining room. We were ecstatic. Later on that day, we get a phone call. A lady calls us up and she says, "Rabbi, I hear you have a lot of guests. I have a girl, and she needs a place for Sukkot." And I just want to say she has been through a lot. She's been abused emotionally and physically. And we need to get her out of her house. And we're going to find a foster home for her. But meanwhile, can she come to you for Sukkot? So I said, "Of course, let her come. Of course, we're not going to say no." Later on, this girl comes. Her name is Miriam. She comes into the house. And the moment she comes in, I said, "We made a mistake. How can I take such a girl?" She comes in, the baseball cap is covering her eyes. We say, "Welcome, Miriam." She doesn't answer. She shuffles in. She looks like a broken vessel. She looks like somebody who has been betrayed by every person in her life that was supposed to protect her. But I'm thinking, I'm a rabbi, I'm not a therapist. What are we going to do for this poor girl? She's going to be here for 8 days. She's not going to be comfortable. I don't know if we'll be. But we already said yes. So she's here. We're going to figure out how to make it work. The first night is Sukkot. All the guests are sitting around in our sukkah outside. And there is Miriam sitting in the corner, not saying a word to anyone. People are trying to make conversation with her, she's not answering. She's chewing a plastic fork, flipping it around for 3 straight hours. Flipping it. And I'm thinking she's going to be like a ghost. Like no one's going to be able to talk to her. It's going to be so uncomfortable. Something amazing happened. Miriam came out of her shell in a way that nobody had the right to expect. First playing with the kids, then schmoozing with my wife, getting to know her. She even sat down with me and told me part of her horrific story. And she really integrated in a way that was nearly miraculous. When Sukkot was over, she stayed a few extra days, Thursday, Friday, Shabbat, Sunday. I called the lady who sent her to us, and I said, what happened to Miriam? I mean, I know we didn't do anything, we didn't do any therapy, but somehow she's almost like healed. And I know she can't be healed in a few days, a lifetime of trauma, but still, what happened to her? So the lady says, I'll tell you what happened to her, I know. The lady says, apparently, the first night of Sukkot, when all your guests were sitting around, she was there as well, and you told a story of a Torah and an ark that you had just acquired. She may not have looked like she was listening, but she was. And that first night of Sukkot, Miriam waited for everyone to go to sleep. She waited for the guests to retire to their quarters, the family to go to their bedrooms, and when the house was silent, she quietly walks down the stairs. She walks over to the ark. She opens up the doors of the ark and she presses her cheeks against the Torah in the ark, and she begins to weep and cry. She says, Master of the world, this Torah did not have a home for so many years. It didn't have a family, wasn't loved, wasn't appreciated. No one understood its value, it was just alone. But somehow, you allow this Torah to find a family and to find a home and to be loved and hugged and kissed. And this ark sitting there in the priest's house, he didn't understand its value. It also didn't have a real home. It didn't have a family. It wasn't loved. But somehow you allowed this ark to find a home and a family that will love it and respect it and admire it and understand its value. So she cries and she says, so Almighty God, why can't I find a family? Why can't I find a home? Why can't I find people who will love me and accept me and appreciate me and maybe even hug me and kiss me once in a while? Would that be such a terrible thing? And every night, unbeknownst to us, Miriam would wait up for everyone to go to sleep, and she would stand in front of the ark for hours, crying her eyes out. And it had this cathartic effect on her, this healing effect. A few days later, a house, a foster home was found for her in Silver Spring, Maryland. She rejoined school. She'd been out of school for a long time. And she wrote us a beautiful email, and she says, Rabbi, I miss your home, I miss your family, I miss the ambiance and the food and the singing and the kids. But more than anything else, she writes, I miss my Torah. I miss my relationship, I miss my connection. A few months ago, a famous rabbi calls me up and he says, I have a school for girls who are abused, special school, sad school, and I want to make a Shabbaton for them at your house. Can you invite them, but don't invite anyone else? And I said, sure. His name is Rabbi Wallerstein. He's a good friend of mine. I said, of course, Rabbi, come, bring your girls, no problem. So he comes to the house, and it's about 25 girls between the age of 13 and 15. And they're there, they're sitting around. And in the middle of the meal, he says, tell them a story. So the first story that came to mind is, I tell them the Torah story. So I tell them the Torah story, and in the middle of the story, one girl puts her head down on the table, she begins to cry. And then another girl, and then a third girl. So I turned to Rabbi Wallerstein, and I said, should I stop? Like, I want to torture your girls. He says, no, this is so good for them. Keep telling the story. Okay, you're the boss. So I continued to tell the story. By the time I finished, about half the girls had their heads on the table. So I knew exactly what to do at that point. And when I finished the story, I told the girls, everyone stand up. They all listened to me. They stood up. I said, come, we're going to go over to that Torah. We're going to go over to the ark. We're going to open the doors, and we're going to take out the Torah. And each and every one of you will have the opportunity to hold it. I want you to stand in the corner and speak to the Almighty and tell Him how angry you are. Tell Him how sad your life has been. Speak to Him. Start the relationship again. It's been tough, but speak. Begin the dialogue. And so each of these girls took turns. They stood in the corner. Wow, did they cry? You can't imagine. Their bodies were shaking. And when they each had finished with their few moments with the Torah, I knew exactly what to do. I said, everyone gather around. You are my new heroes. You really are. And I want to introduce you to another hero of mine. I said, Miriam, can you please come in? You see, after Miriam graduated, we adopted her. So Miriam lives by us now. She's been by us now for 4 years. And Miriam, older than them, gave them each a hug. She said, it's going to be okay. They were crying with her. And she's the Miriam of the story. They were so excited to meet her. You know, sometimes relationships have bumps. Sometimes relationships don't go smoothly. But if it's worth having, it's worth preserving. And that's the other part of the beauty of Judaism being a relationship. You don't drop it when things are inconvenient or when things don't go your way. If it's worth having, it's worth preserving. If it's religion, we drop it, we look elsewhere. If it's a relationship, it'll last. And we'll be able to give it to our children and our children's children. And we won't have to sit in boardrooms wringing our fingers. How can we get people to engage? Don't want to. Thank you all very much.